The deep ocean boasts some of the most extraordinary features found anywhere on Earth. Huge mountain chains, towering volcanic structures, trenches that are unimaginably deep. But there is something else in this vast and mysterious world beneath the sea. Something undiscovered until 1977 that has ignited the curiosity of oceanographers and other scientists, perhaps more than anything else. This is a hydrothermal vent, a kind of deep ocean hot spring found at a depth of nearly 10,000 feet. While the water temperature of deep ocean basins generally averages about 3 to 4 degrees centigrade, the temperature of water in the vicinity of hydrothermal vents can be as hot as 350 degrees Celsius or 650 degrees Fahrenheit. But that's just part of the story.
In the 20th century, one of the big discoveries was the discovery of hydrothermal vents in the late 1970s. This was an enormous revolution. Nobody had predicted that there would be this entire new ecosystem basically driven by geochemical energy from the center of the Earth as opposed to the traditional models of driving it from photosynthesis on the surface of the Earth. So when hydrothermal vents were discovered, it came as an enormous surprise to the first geologists who spotted the animals, to the biologists who made the first dives on Alvin to go down and take these samples. And I think that 20 years later, we're still fascinated by some of the diversity issues of these vents.
Hydrothermal vents are found in many different places in the ocean. Primarily, hydrothermal vents bring up hot water from deep in the earth. They are loaded with various minerals, such as sulfide, polymetallic sulfide minerals, the like, and they form very intricate and spectacular features called chimneys. These features are generally found in areas where the seafloor is spreading apart, such as mid-oceanic ridges.
It's a visually spectacular process. When you see it, it's like looking at bigger than Yellowstone on the seafloor in an environment that is normally almost a desert, very few things on the seafloor and on the ridge flanks, but you come up to a mid-ocean ridge and all of a sudden there are these enormous biological communities and bacterial mats.
They're very similar to geysers, similar to what you would see in Yellowstone, but they occur at much deeper depths, and because they're at deeper depths, the fluids can get much hotter. Many areas of the seafloor are underlain by active volcanoes, and those volcanoes supply heat, and those volcanoes cool down, and when they cool down, the surface and to some depth the rocks crack, basaltic rocks similar to what you'd see in Hawaii. And as those cracks develop, seawater, cold seawater can percolate down through those cracks. It gets near the hot rocks, the cooling volcanoes, becomes buoyant and rises to the seafloor at temperatures up to 700–800 degrees Fahrenheit.
Hydrothermal circulation is a really very complex process where you're heating seawater above the boiling point. It's a physical process associated with the cracking of rocks. It's a chemical process. It's a process that extracts magnesium from seawater.
It extracts elements like iron and sulfur, most of the metals. It actually leaches out of the rocks, and so the fluids that are emitted onto the seafloor are much hotter than what the normal background ocean water temperatures are, and they're laden with, they're enriched in a lot of chemical species, and so when they hit the seafloor, very cold seawater, those minerals fall out of solution, they precipitate and form these black smoker chimneys, which most of them are made out of metal deposits.
The interaction between seawater, rocks, and minerals that is at the core of hydrothermal circulation has profound implications for the marine environment.
Most seawater will have, in 100,000 or 200,000 years, will have actually passed through one of these hydrothermal systems. In a hydrothermal circulation cell, you're taking normal seawater, you are drawing it down into the crustal rocks, you are reheating it to very high temperatures on the ridge axis, even very intermediate temperatures on the ridge flank, and you're exposing it to rock that has a lot of chemicals that want to react with it. There's a lot of iron. Iron is given off from the rocks into the seawater. Magnesium is absorbed from the seawater into the rocks. Calcium is given off. That's forming this chemical balance at very high temperatures. And so the fluid that actually comes out of a hydrothermal vent is chemically much different than the fluid that went in, the seawater that went in. So it is changing its chemistry.
Some of the chemicals that are in high concentrations in this hydrothermal fluid are hydrogen sulfide, and that's one of the chemicals that's very important for the life that exists at hydrothermal vents. The hydrogen sulfide is an energy source, so it's comparable to sunlight. Plants on the surface of the earth use sunlight as an energy source to create compounds, and the microbes and bacteria that live at hydrothermal vents use hydrogen sulfide as an energy source to build carbohydrates. And these bacteria at hydrothermal vents are the base of the food web there.
What is perhaps most spectacular about hydrothermal vents are the exceptionally strange organisms that have somehow adapted to and apparently thrive in this unique region of the deep ocean.
By some estimates in hydrothermal vents, there are hundreds of species that are unique to vents, not found anywhere else on planet Earth. The hydrothermal vent tube worms are an example, lots of arthropods, just a very large number of species that are unique to these vent sites. What is particularly interesting is to look at the evolution of these life forms, to see where do they come from. Do they evolve there? Do they evolve somewhere else and then migrate there in evolutionary time? Those are some of the interesting questions in the evolutionary biology of animal life forms at vents at the moment.
For many scientists, the lure of hydrothermal vents extends beyond the vent region itself.
I think the reasons that hydrothermal vents are of such interest is that they embody a lot of the processes that make our planet what it is. The other reason is that there's interest through NASA in the sense that if we want to look for other places in our solar system where life can exist, maybe microbial life, then what we'd like to know is how does life develop on a planet? What processes physically sustain life? And so by looking at the volcanoes and the life that they support here on our own planet, perhaps we can gain guidance to search for life on other planets as well.